Hello and welcome to the Superpower Dead team. I'm Peter.
And I'm Rick. Today we've got a special guest star. We're talking to Adam Sigal, who is the writer and director of the film Nandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose.
We really enjoyed talking to Adam and we hope that you like watching the video. If you enjoy our videos, please press the like button, press the subscribe button, and if you've got any suggestions for videos you'd like us to do, please put them in the comments below. Today we are lucky enough to be talking to filmmaker Adam Sigal. He has a new movie coming out, Nandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose, and he's been very generous to give us some of his time to talk about it and maybe a bit about his other movies and his career. So thank you, Adam. Welcome.
Yep,
Thank you for
Adam.
having me. Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Oh, we're very pleased to have you. So can we just start a bit about your background and how you got into filmmaking?
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing this about 20 years almost now. I moved to Los Angeles from Florida when I was about 19 or 20. I knew I wanted to write. I thought I wanted to be a novelist, and I loved movies. I've always loved movies, and I've always been a big writer. And I dated this girl, and she would bring me home her audition sides, and they were just so bad that I would go, I could write better than this in my sleep, legitimately. And so I started rewriting them for her, and she was like, they like it better. And I was like, oh. And so then I, eventually in 2007 wrote a script and gave it to my roommate who was a director. And I said, I have a rich guy who I think would finance this. Let's make it. We got this totally unknown actor at the time named Aaron Paul, which was pre-Breaking Bad, and he starred in it. And I made two films as writer and producer, and then I just said, these are not translating from me to the director. I'm not at a point in my career yet where I'm working with these directors that can really interpret my vision in a new way. So if these movies are going to suck, let them suck the way I want them to suck. And so I had learned enough on set at that point to start directing, and I directed my first feature in 2012, I think it was, or somewhere thereabouts. With an actor named Sam Hewen. He's the lead on the show Outlander, and it was a cool little indie that I kind of got screwed on because I didn't get to really give my cut. They kind of made their own cut, and then went on from there and made more.
No, but I was just thinking that looking you up on the usual channels and that, and you're influenced a lot by movies from the 80s and 90s, or you've got a genre that you like. So what were your influences back then?
A lot. My biggest influences as a storyteller, definitely, it would be people like David Lynch. He's my favorite, kind of current filmmaker. Just not even his films. I love his films, but just the way he tells stories is so fascinating to me. I really love the Ethan and Joel Coen. They were one of the big influences to get me into writing and making films. Raising Arizona was one of the first movies I saw that because I came from a very sort of prose heavy writing style. Like that's how I like to write, and very sort of almost classic novel-esque, right? And but I wanted to make cool movies, and Raising Arizona was one of the first movies that just had such a wildly intelligent, verbose script, but was still cool, that made me go, oh wow, this is possible to combine my love of sort of classic literary style with cool movies, and so those are some of my influences that I try to emulate. With Nandor in particular, obviously was heavily influenced by Wes Anderson. I feel like Wes Anderson is underappreciated right now, because he's almost become he's become almost like a meme of himself, but I think people sort of take for granted how incredible it is that you can pretty much watch one frame of a movie of his and know it's his. To be a director with that much of your own style that's so yours and nobody else does and is beloved, it's pretty cool.
It's like the auteur, they call it the auteur when it's really the director's style.
Instead
of pushing out the cookie cutter like action movies and things that
Yeah.
lots of directors do. It's
Absolutely.
interesting you mentioned David Lynch. We watched your movie Chariot, and we were just talking before about the man floating in the lobby
Oh,
and
yeah.
just passing by, and I was like, what was that about?
That was my manager.
Interesting.
That's my manager that floated by. He was on set that day, and we needed a small human to occupy that harness, and he's a small human. Yeah. I mean, look, like I recently did it had to be almost a 3-hour podcast that I got invited onto that was all about David Lynch. And you know, with regard to that scene in Chariot, there's no real special significance to the floating man beyond the fact that I was trying to sort of create this just this sort of environment of strange, odd people residing in that residence. But Lynch, you know, as a storyteller, fascinates me so much because he's really one of the only guys out there, I feel, who truly prioritizes theme over narrative in a way where he has his theme and he has not the story he wants to tell, but the theme he wants to convey, and then he'll do whatever the hell he wants to convey it. He'll throw a bunch of scenes together that don't make any narrative sense, but that make you feel a certain way. And it's such an incredible way of storytelling. I mean, it's almost poetic. Like, you know, a film like Mulholland Drive, right? Like, I love to watch people try to interpret that film because it doesn't make sense. I don't care what you do. It does not make sense. You cannot watch that movie and say, okay, no, I get it now. No, there's no answer. No. But if you look at there's this very unique sort of sensation of being a young actress moving to Los Angeles into this overwhelming world where everything's so established, and there seems to be this like almost unseen force that determines who makes it and who doesn't, and this sense of like, what do I not have that she has? And it's this like almost unquantifiable emotion that he captures through a bunch of just random vignettes, and nobody else does that.
No, I thought you did a great job of that in Chariot, that hotel. Watching that, it was just unsettling all the way through. Just there was this background just bubbling away of just what's happening, what's going on, and it was watching that film, I was just so engrossed in all of that.
Even the fact that everybody was involved in each other's lives, like that's just not what happens. So you're like, what's going on here? This isn't a normal place. Yeah,
that was kind of my homage to my days in an apartment building in LA where everyone is involved in everyone's lives and everybody knows everything. It's just like, you know, pure gossip. But that's funny. And thank you for watching that. Yeah, I mean, look, like that movie was a challenge for me because I knew what I wanted to explain. My goal with Chariot was to talk about death, and I'm obsessed with death, as you can tell from Chariot and Nandor, and more so like people's obsession with what happens afterward and how, you know, there's so much fear. Like my basic premise of Chariot was like, and why it's called Chariot, among other reasons, was like, I feel as though science has definitively answered all the big questions in the universe, most of them, except for death.
Yeah.
Like that's why all these religions still exist and everything. But when humanity didn't know the answers to those questions, things that were as simple as like, why does the sun move across the sky? They mythologized it in the same way that we mythologize death. Once we understood those things, they became extremely boring. And I was trying to sort of postulate that maybe death is that boring. Maybe John Malkovich has this corporation, or, you know, as part of this corporation that comes along and they just usher you into the next thing and that's it. And they take away your memories and boom, and that's it. And so, you know, in the same way that we know that gravity makes you stick to the earth and stuff. And so it was a high concept that I was trying to achieve that's difficult. And I think I got there in some places and missed in some places. And I learned a lot from making that movie.
That's awesome. So that sort of brings us on with a supernatural theme to Jeff the Talking Mongoose. So where did you first hear about Jeff the Talking Mongoose?
So it was about 10 years ago, and it was the most random of places. I was listening to a radio show it was a sports talk radio show. And for some reason they mentioned Jeff. They mentioned Nandor Fodor in this case. And I kind of did a double take and I said, did he just say like a guy investigated a talking mongoose? What? And I researched it and I was like, oh, wow, this is true. And so for years, I knew I was going to tell the story, and I would have meetings with people and they would say, what else you got? And I said, well, I'm going to write this Talking Mongoose script at some point. And they look at me like I was insane, which, I am. But, it wasn't until I had this sort of strange peripheral religious experience with a person in my life who made just an incredibly bafflingly awful decision based on religious beliefs that hurt a lot of people. And I thought about it a lot, and I thought about how important people's imaginary friend, their religion is in their life, and how they will, do these practically awful things in present day that makes their life worse and makes the life worse for the people around them for the sake of their religion. And it made me think like, man, like, they must really truly believe this. It must really make them happy. And so Nandor was kind of this, like, my own musings about cynicism and faith and happiness and how these factors relate to each other. And once I figured out that subtext, then I went, for some reason, it made me think of the Talking Mongoose. And that was when it became a story,
Okay. So it was based on a true story in the Isle of Man.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the logistics of going to another country to make a movie? Like, I know you didn't shoot on the Isle of Man, but
no, we shot in the north. We shot in the north of England. It was amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, making movies in America is fine, but it was really beautiful working with the Brits. They had a very different mentality about film in general. And, I've talked about this a bit, and I actually just got back from London the other day. We did a Nandor premiere there.
Yeah.
And they just approach it slightly differently than here in America. In America, it's very workmanlike, and it's very union oriented, and it's very like, we clock in, we clock out, we get out of here. Like, this is a job, we're going overtime. Oh, no. It's like, in England, it was like, man, we're making a movie. This is so cool. There's Simon Pegg. Holy shit. Like, this is so great. And that mentality was really refreshing. Just people remembering that we're so lucky that we're doing this really cool thing, and we're making a movie.
Doing what lots of people dream about doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that gets lost a lot here in the States, I'm sad to say.
It's more of a business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what, like, leading into movies these days seem to have massive budgets. You got to be a part of a franchise or something to get released, have really boring 40-minute CGI things. So how hard is it to get? So back in the 80s and that, you'd have your big summer tentpole. They'd come out maybe every 6 months, 12 months, and you can still have these smaller movies being made. So how hard is it now? Yeah, how hard is it to now have these little intimate movies, these quirky movies made when the studios are into the big buck stuff?
Yeah. Well, by the way, when we did the premiere here in LA of Nandor, I had to come out and introduce the film, and I came out and I said, all right, everybody, I know what you're all thinking. Another Talking Mongoose movie. When's it going to end? Right? Like, because I'm with you, man. Like, come on. Like, it's just so much garbage out there. And to answer your question is, it's hard. And I have chosen, but I can't do it any other way. I mean, because the truth of the matter is that there is a need. There is a want. I talk to thousands and thousands of people who want the cool mid-budget movies that we used to see in the 90s. And I used to go to the movies every week with my family and watch a cool movie. And they've been lost in a lot of ways. And there are some that get made, but it's so much fewer. And I want more of them. And I don't care that the industry doesn't. And I don't care that they're harder to make. I'm going to keep trying to make them because I just have no interest in seeing garbage. I don't have any interest in, like, the big Marvel movies. I don't have any interest in the stuff, even a lot of the festival stuff that's coming out there right now. It's all similar to me, and I want to see things that are unique and that make me think and make me laugh, and don't have this like very measured approach to everything, and subjects that people are scared to do. No, like I want to see the cool real indies that I used to love. And there's a whole generation of us that do, and even younger generation, I think, do. They just haven't been exposed to as much of it, but they love it,
Yeah, they're all just used to seeing what they're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. And the studios will dictate what's out there. They'll dictate what we're going to see and don't see. So I wish people would pay vote with their dollar. I don't see any of that garbage that's out there. I mean, I'll go see a big movie if it's good, but.
So you were talking before about how David Lynch has his own style and he can produce that on screen. The big movies, they're being told by the execs about what they got to put in, whereas you're getting a chance here. But doing what you're doing, you write your own stuff, and a lot of movies you've written there, I saw, and you get to direct, and you get to have your own voice and sharpen that, so that with luck in the future, you're still going, that you will probably be one of these filmmakers. You look at that frame, you put a couple of frames and go, that's an Adam film.
That's my goal. I mean, my one thing about me, and I was just talking to my girlfriend about this because I just shot a movie over the summer that's about a small southern town in the U.S. that has a mermaid living in the water tower. It was with Bella Thorne. I was going to ask about that. Yeah, it was with Bella Thorne and Jack Kilmer. And I'm in early development on a movie that's about the softcore porn industry in the 90s here. It's kind of like a Boogie Nights type movie. And then I am writing like a straight up period piece, like a Pride and Prejudice-esque period piece. My girlfriend's like, you just really don't have a genre, do you? And I was like, no, I just have these stories I want to tell. So
that's great, though. Yeah. Well, we probably need to let you go, but just before you go, I have to ask. I'm a big Christopher Lloyd fan. I have to ask, what was it like working with Christopher Lloyd on Nandor Fodor?
It was incredible. So the most memorable things about Chris. He was so sweet and so nice, and we've become good friends. And he lives out here in Santa Barbara, and I go out and visit him.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
But the best Christopher Lloyd moment was the first night he got to Leeds. We went out to Indian food with Simon and everyone, a bunch of the producers and the cast and stuff. And when we were leaving, Chris and his lovely wife Lisa had called an Uber, and their Uber pulled up, and we were all kind of in a huddle there. And we hadn't called anything, and we were all standing around like, oh shit, we need to call something. And Lisa said, hey, have you guys called your Uber? Are you okay? And I said, no, it's fine. We'll call one now. And it was starting to rain. And she said, are you guys okay? And I said, yeah. And then Christopher walks past, and he opens he gets in the cab. He pulls the door open and leans out and goes, hope you'll catch a ride. And it was just like vintage Christopher. He sounded just like Doc Brown. It was great. I could see his hair blowing in the rain. It was beautiful. I was like, that's him, man. So it was, and on set, he was lovely. I mean, we barraged him with a lot of dialogue in this movie, and he learned it very quickly and did a really great job, and is just a lovely, piece of Hollywood majesty and history that I was very lucky to get to work with.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you very much. Do you have Instagram or things you'd like to plug before we go?
I mean, the Instagram's all I got. It's called, my account is Soaring Siegel, and I post among the dumb memes and pictures of random stuff from my life. I post a lot of movie stuff on there, and about my movies and movies I love and how much I hate the film industry right now and that type of stuff. So
awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Really appreciate it,
guys.
Talking Mongoose. It's out in America on streaming. It's coming out in the UK on the 9th of November, I believe.
Yep.
And I'm not sure about Australia, but hopefully
it's coming there soon. It does have distribution in Australia, so it'll be there.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Cool. Okay, guys.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.